So typically when I do one of these videos telling the history of some classic computer, I try to stay as unbiased as possible. I may like some systems more than others, but I try to give them a fair shake. Not today. Today, we talk about the Tandy 600, a computer I think I actually might hate. To find out why, let's get into it. Hello, I'm your host Jacob, and this is Tandy Lab. Today we're looking at the history of one of Tandy's biggest flops, the portable Tandy 600. So fundamentally, the Tandy 600 was a response to the request of fans of the previous generation of Tandy portables, the Tandy 100 and 200. So an understanding of those systems is essential to understanding the 600. I'll give you a summary of them here, but if you'd like a more thorough examination, I have covered both systems in their own dedicated videos, so go check those out. So the Tandy 100, or TRS-80 Micro Executive Workstation, was a portable computer Tandy sold based on a Kyocera design beginning in 1983. It proved to be a very popular system due to it being one of the best word processing portables on the market. It was quite popular with journalists and busy executives as a device that could be used to take notes in the field, write full stories from the comfort of hotel rooms, then send the completed work back to the office using the 100's built-in 300 baud modem. The Tandy 200, which came out a year later, was essentially a Tandy 100 in a new clamshell form factor with a double height screen. It was not nearly as successful as the older machine, since the needs of portable computer users were changing, and the 200 didn't really add anything new to the 100, which was now selling at a heavy discount. So Tandy set out to design a new system, or rather they commissioned a Japanese company for the design. Which company exactly has seemingly been lost to time, but the best guess is OKI Electric Industry Company Ltd, who produced the system's BIOS. This new system, called the TRS-80 Model 600, or just Tandy 600 for short, would use a brand new architecture entirely. It would feature enhancements in basically every area. It had a significantly faster CPU, many more options with its built-in software, more RAM, a built-in disk drive, and possibly most importantly, an 80-character display, which was the single most requested upgrade by far. That all sounds nice. In fact, really nice. But it's exactly these upgrades that would be the death of the 600. The 600 became a system stuck between a rock and a hard place from day one. The 600 somehow managed to both do far too much and far too little at the exact same time. How does that even happen? Well, let's take a look at how it did too much first. You see, adding a bunch of new features, expensive RAM chips, a disk drive, and all that costs money. The Tandy 600 was far too expensive. When it launched, the system sold for a base price of $1599. With options, it could surpass the $2,000 mark. Looking at the 1986 Radio Shack catalog, you could already pick up a Tandy 100 for just $600. And if you really needed the clamshell form factor, the 200 was available for $999. It was hard to argue that the extra cost was justified, when the Tandy 600 really didn't add that much that was essential for those who most used its predecessors. To make the comparison even worse, the 600 also seriously lacked in portability compared to the other two. All the extra features made the thing quite a bit heavier at just under 10 pounds of weight. That's almost exactly the same as carrying 3 Model 100s at once. Now that's still nothing compared to the massive luggables of the time, but the 600 definitely lost the simple convenience of the 100. And one more note when comparing the 600 to its predecessors, both the 100 and 200 included Microsoft Basic in ROM. a wonderful feature for the time. On the 600, a basic ROM chip was an optional add-on that cost $129. Yikes. And now, let's look at the other side of the coin, how the Tandy 600 did too little. You see, when the Tandy 600 was released, everyone knew where the portable laptop market was going. It was clear the future would be filled with small, clamshell laptops that were compatible with the IBM PCs, flooding schools and offices. There were already some options available in that space, but few that were compact, compatible, and cheap. The closest to those goals that was released in 1985 was probably the Toshiba T1100, which leveraged the 80C86 CPU to be fully IBM compatible at a price of only $1899. The Tandy 600, which stood just below or above that price point, depending on the configuration, used a very similar CPU with an MSM 80C88, essentially a standard 8088 with an integrated CMOS battery. It, however, was downclocked to just 3.07 MHz and was not IBM compatible. The closest you got to integration with the PC architecture was the ability to use Word documents written on the 600 on your PC. That's essentially it. That's right, you get all of the added cost of the PC architecture with literally zero of the benefits that came with. Anyone who was looking to drop that much money on a portable would want full compatibility. And even if there were no other systems on the market catching their attention, most knew enough to wait a year or two for much more compatible systems to enter the market, like Tandy's own 1400 LT, released in 1987. This made selling the 600 difficult at launch, and it got harder with every passing day. It was pretty clear that the 600 wasn't going to be a big success. Arguably, it would end up as one of Tandy's biggest failures, which has somewhat ironically made the Tandy 600 quite collectible in modern times since so few of them were sold. Our Tandy 600 was purchased on eBay for $280 in a bundle that came with its AC adapter, manuals, stacks of floppy disks, and a neat case to carry it all in. Our system does have one issue, one that unfortunately affects most Tandy 600 systems you'll find out in the wild. You see, rather than using removable batteries like its predecessors, the 600 uses rechargeable D-cell batteries that are soldered onto the motherboard. Unfortunately, the vast majority of batteries selected were faulty, causing them to leak onto the motherboard over time and cause corrosion damage. Our system has the batteries removed, but you can definitely tell there's some damage to the board. So that's something to keep in mind if you ever do find one of these systems to pick up. Again, I'm really not a fan of this system, so I'd recommend skipping it unless you're the hardest of hardcore Tandy collectors, like we are. So that's the Tandy 600. It stinks. Let me know if you've ever owned a 600, or if you somehow disagree with me about the quality of it. And now for the ratings. I'll try not to be too harsh. Usability, 2 out of 5. Well, the system does have a pretty nice keyboard, and the built-in software has some nice features, but it's shockingly unintuitive, and the manual is a pretty poor resource for learning its idiosyncrasies. Rarity, 5 out of 5. I can't find any specific numbers for how many of these were sold, but I'd be truly surprised if that number was even in the 6 digits. Tandy ended up selling many unsold systems directly to their own employees for extreme discounts. Even then, many sat on store shelves before being recycled. Price, 1 out of 5. Well, our system doesn't seem that expensive, but that's only because we got lucky finding it randomly several years ago. Expect pretty high prices and waiting a while if you do intend to pick one up. Aesthetics, 3 out of 5. It's boring looking, but inoffensive. It's kind of sad that this will be its highest grade. Software, 2 out of 5. Well, the built-in software is fine, but outside of that, your options are quite limited, save for writing your own basic programs or hunting down homebrew on the internet. Well, there you have it, the Tandy 600. What do you think? Do you think I was too harsh on this system? Let me know in the comments down below. And please, if you'd like to talk more about retro computers, make sure to join our Facebook group. And if you'd like to support this show to keep it running, you can check out our Patreon. And I'll see you guys next time with another classic computer. Hopefully one that's a little bit better than this one. See ya.